England will continue the World Cup preparations tomorrow as they take on Japan at Wembley, which you can hear once again right here on talkSPORT. However, despite crucial preparation time, a number of players have decided to pull out of their various international duties, and a lot of these players come from Arsenal. The Gunners can field an entire outfield team of players who have reported injured and have therefore returned to Arsenal. They include Gabby. Timber, Saliba, Gabriel, Nkepaye, Eze, Zubamendi, Rice, Madueke, Saka, Trossard. Right. Now, Gabby, I've got a feeling you've got something to say on the matter, yeah?
Do you know what, Ali? Just from experience, first of all, before I go into it, like, I pulled out of a lot of squads as a player. Some because of managers, maybe like you know, we've got big games coming up and blah, 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 and pull out. And I regret it, Ali. Yeah. I really regret it. I would have had a lot more caps than 3. I would have got to, like, maybe 4 caps. No, I'm joking. But I would have got a lot more caps if I if I didn't pull out so many squads. And I think this is something that Harry Kane should speak out about, England captain. Because everyone was on the weekend saying, yeah, you know, Ben White deserved to get booed. He got booed when he come on. Well, he's the only Arsenal player still away with the England squad. And I look at players like Madueke, no problem. You pulled out, you got injured against Uruguay. It was quite a hard tackle, no problem. I look at players like Timber, Eze, Odegaard, pulled out because they didn't play against Manchester City, Ali. No problem. Those 4 players, no problem with it. But Hincapia, Rice, Saka, Gabriel, Saliba, Trossard, Zubamendi had no problems during that game against Manchester City. And I just don't think it's right, Ali. I feel that if I was part of the Premier League and I make a decision, I'd bring in a new rule. You miss the next league game available if you pull out of international duty. And I'll tell you something, Ali, players would stop pulling out. Playing for your country, like you know more than anyone, Ali, is an honour.
Yes.
If I'm Harry Kane, I'm speaking about this and saying, come on, guys, let's not go back to what we've done 4 or 5 years ago, where players are pulling out non-stop. I get it. Arteta's doing everything possible to win these trophies he wants to win. Their next game, Ali, after international break, I'm sure it's the FA Cup against Southampton.
Yeah.
I'm just not keen on players pulling out of international duty.
No.
It's an honour to play for your country. I didn't sit right with me, mate.
No, you're right. The bottom line, it's not up for debate. You're right, because you are factually correct in everything you say. Playing for your country should be and should continue to be the pinnacle and the greatest honour you can get. Right.
I don't think it is for some players.
No, well, in my opinion, it should be, right? Because it was for me, and I bet it was for you and thousands of other, you know, English, Welsh, Scottish, and Irish, Northern Irish internationalists, right? I do have a certain degree of sympathy, where I think, you know, back in the day, I know there was always contact between club managers and the Scotland manager. You know, whether the Scotland manager at the time was Craig Brown and it was Walter Smith dealing with them, or indeed Walter was manager of the Scotland team and myself and Tommy were assisting him. There was always dialogue, right?
Yes.
And so there should be. So, for example, if the Celtic manager, the Rangers manager had big European games coming up and they were concerned, they would phone the Scotland manager and say, okay, whether it's Paul McStay or Maurice Johnston or Richard Gough, look, can you look after them, you know, in the respect, particularly if it's a friendly. Now, this is the key issue for me. I've called these games necessary evils, and they are, because you have to have them, but there'll be 70% of your squad, maybe even 75% of your squad, you know that you're taken to the World Cup and they do not want to get injured, either for the World Cup or for their clubs. So you've got to kind of, you're if not walking in eggshells, you've got to be very, very careful, because it's your job as international manager to look after the international team, but at the same time, you like to kind of help the clubs if you can.
Do you see what I look at it though, Ali? I get exactly what you're saying, but what I started to find out my last few years at Aston Villa, training was like games. It wasn't like it was maybe when under Martin O'Neill, where it was like maybe not as intense. Sometimes, Ali, during these international breaks, for instance, Aston Villa, they're playing friendlies in Spain. They've gone there, the players. I just feel that, like, you could get injured in training. You know,
No, you
these
can't. Of course you can.
friendlies, I just
you
don't
can.
understand it. Like, how can Arteta just say to his players, listen, you pull out, you pull out, you pull out, you pull out, you pull out? It just doesn't sit right with me. If I'm Thomas Tuchel, I'm like, hang on a second. Saka, Rice, you know, you're
I would be staggered,
yeah,
Gab.
you're leaving, but I've left you out the first squad to give you
Yeah.
some rest. I'm bringing you into the second squad now for the Japan game, and you pulled out.
I would be staggered if there hadn't been any dialogue between Thomas Tuchel and Mikel Arteta. I think there has to be. I mean, I might be wrong. Maybe they haven't, but there has to be a healthy correspondence between the managers and indeed the national manager. Now, I keep saying it, there's a thin line because the national manager effectively.
Why have every team done it then? What if every team says, okay, Everton, all right, I don't want my players to go because we're fighting for Europe. Aston Villa, Rodgers and Conte don't need to go. Unai Emery doesn't want you to go because you're fighting in Europa League and you're fighting for top 5.
Yeah.
Then what? There's no players available for your country.
I take your point. Of course, I take your point.
Yep.
But let's go to another extreme. Somebody like, and you mentioned it, somebody like Declan Rice, for example.
Yes.
Right, Declan Rice will play in the England team in the World Cup. That there's no doubt. And yes, he should be in and around the squad. I get all that. But is it a necessity for Thomas Tuchel to play him in those games, whether it's Uruguay or Japan, whatever it may be? Probably not, because he's got other people to look at. So, in that respect, I can understand them kind of looking after one or two players.
Yeah.
They're not all like that.
Hincapie.
Yes.
Gabriel didn't even go. Saliba didn't even go. Trossard, Zubimendi. I just feel like it's a bit of a mockery for so many players to pull out, Ali, when you already got Timber, Eze, Odegaard, Madueke pulled out. Just doesn't sit right with me, mate. That's all. I know how much it means to you and to a lot of people playing for their country.
What would totally back up your argument, would totally back up, if it was a World Cup game tomorrow, 99% of them wouldn't be calling off.
Exactly.
Okay, we've got a couple of calls, and the phone lines, as you can imagine, is going crazy. Somebody that has called 03717 223344 is Taylor, and Taylor is an Arsenal fan. Taylor, good morning. Thanks for calling.
Good morning, Taylor.
What have you got to say, my friend? What do you think?
Morning. Yeah, I agree with Ali, to be fair. I don't really know what Gabby's issue is. I read something online. I don't know whether he said it, these days you don't know what you read online's true, but Roy Keane was saying he doesn't understand the issue. At all, because Fergie used to do it a lot, pull players out. Pep's done it as well. I think...
So what if everyone done it, mate? Taylor, what if everyone done it? Then you'd have no players available for international duty.
I know what you're saying. If everyone done it, you are quite right. But I don't think everyone is going to do it.
Why not?
It's a risk. Well, it's a risk versus reward basis, isn't it? At the end of the day, we are going for the Premier League title. We are still in the Champions League. The next game back after the international break, if I'm not mistaken, is an FA Cup quarter final as well. So we are still fighting on 3 fronts. And if you remember. Obviously, I remember because I'm an Arsenal fan, but Gabriel got injured in a friendly against Senegal that was played at the Emirates back in October. We then missed him for 3 games, and we dropped points away at Sunderland. We then dropped points away at Chelsea. We need our top players. We've been blamed for having players missing for the running, the vital running in previous seasons.
Yeah, but maybe countries that are going to the World Cup need their best players.
Yeah, but right, it's friendlies. I understand if it was World Cup qualifiers, like what Ali's saying. If it was qualifiers or it was World Cup games, then they won't be pulling out. But at the end of the day, these are he's just called them necessary evils. I completely agree. If it were up to me, I wouldn't even have these friendlies. Like the players have got enough time to warm up for the World Cup just by playing for their clubs. So it is a bit of a pointless international break. Don't get me wrong. I'm happy for it because it gives the players a necessary break from. We had games coming every 3 days for a number of weeks, so they kind of need a bit of a breather. But I'm glad they've been pulled out of the squads. We've seen what's happened before when they've got injured, and I'm not being funny, Gabby, but I bet you would be the first one to say if Villa were still fighting for the league, because only
we're fighting for a lot.
You were saying, we might win the league, we might be up there with City and Arsenal.
Taylor,
if they were still there now.
Great call. I'm sorry, I'm going to have to cut you short.
I would look at it and say, I want my players.
I really enjoyed it, mate. Thanks for taking the call. I've got to take another one. Kyle's giving us a call. Morning, Kyle.
Good morning, Kyle.
The floor is yours. On you go.
Is this me? Am I through now?
You're through, Kyle.
You're through, Kyle. Let's go.
Right, good. Gabby, Gabby is the most disingenuous presenter on talkSPORT. It's all about Teta. It's all about Teta. When Teta's done it, Gabby didn't pipe up. When Segi did it in the past, Gabby didn't pipe up. But once it's like
how do you know?
Wait to get his box out.
How do you know I didn't complain?
I've never seen you have so much energy for players pulling out of international break, Gabby. You know, you just can't wait to lay into it.
No, just does it. Listen, Kyle, it doesn't sit right with me, mate. It's the biggest honour to play for your country.
If Arteta should bottle it this season. So, as an Arsenal fan, I'm supporting Arteta all the way. Go for it, Arteta. Do what you want.
Kyle, you've got no problem with players not wanting to play for their country. Players can get injured in training.
They actually want to play for their country.
You sure?
This is a decision that has been made. Are you thinking Thomas Tuchel is that weak that's going to get bullied by Arteta? Come on, give it a rest, Gabby.
Well,
Arteta,
okay.
Arteta doesn't have the crowd to bully Thomas Tuchel.
Okay, Hincapié, Rice, Saka, Gabriel, Saliba, Trossard, Zubamendi.
It's a coincidence. Okay, think about what you're saying. You're suggesting that there's shenanigans going on.
Of course.
Think about it.
The players aren't injured.
And you have the cheek to turn around and say Arsenal fans push a conspiracy. You're pushing a conspiracy, saying that the FA because think about it, for the England players to be able to pull out, the FA will need to approve it, the coaching staff will need to approve it.
You sure?
So
no, it doesn't work like that. No. It doesn't work like that. Trust me, I've been there. If the club want to pull a player out, the club decides, not the England and the FA.
They went to join up with their teams. They went to join up with their teams.
If I'm Harry Kane, Kyle, if I'm Harry Kane...
What does Barcelona feel about Rafinha now? In hindsight, they probably wish they pulled him out. Yeah. So let's be fair here, okay? It's probably the wrong time of the season. If Arteta pulled out the players from the World Cup in 2022, which was right in the middle of the season, then you could have to go at Arteta. But at this point, if any players are carrying niggles, it's not precautionary.
But there's not niggles, though. There's not niggles. He's thinking, okay, these are my 11 star players. I don't want them away of international duty. But if I'm the England captain, I'm calling these players out. This is the best part of your career is playing for your country, the biggest honour, and you're leaving. Doesn't sit right with me, Mr. McCoist.
Agreed. No.
Well, stop laughing at me then, Ali.
I'm not. I'm laughing at Kyle coming up with you with both barrels. I totally enjoyed that. But I tell you what, he did let himself down, Kyle. He accused you actually of not piping up sometimes. I think you.
I always do.
The one thing you do, you always pipe up.
He wants me to pipe up at Sir Alex Ferguson, Ali. I was still playing then. But Ali, jokes aside though, I just think when there's so many from one team pull out, I get it. Selfishly, you want to go and win all these trophies now. Yeah. Didn't turn up against Man City. You're looking at the Southampton game and thinking, want everyone fit and available. But I'm looking as a player who play for their country. It's not a good look, mate. It's really not.